Hello, welcome back to I Create For You. Um, my name's Lori, and we're going to be doing another story in the Ghosts of the Black Hills. And it's called The Ghost of Mount Moriah. Another well-known tourist attraction and site of paranormal interest in Deadwood is Mount Moriah Cemetery. This scenic hilltop resting place contains the remains of such frontier notables as Wild Bill Hickok, Calamity Jane, and Preacher Smith. Joining these larger-than-life characters of the Old West are other departed residents as well, miners, merchants, settlers, plain, ordinary citizens, and all part of Deadwood's illustrious past. At the very top of the hill, high above the town, is the mass grave of 11 men who worked at a local sawmill and died in a fire at their boarding house back in 1883. Jan Castilla was a graduate student in the spring of 1973. The semester had just ended, and Jan was heading back to her folks' place in Colorado for a short break before she started her summer classes. She had passed through Deadwood on her way home several times in the past, but on this particular day, Jan realized she had never really seen the sights in this picturesque part of Black Hills. It was just a whim, but for some reason she really wanted to, almost felt she needed to, visit the famous cemetery on Mount Moriah. Ascending the hill in her small car, Jan began to feel like something was pulling her along with an urgency she couldn't explain. Like everyone else, she knew all the history there, and was familiar with the lore of all those legendary residents interred in that patch of ground. Jan observed with interest the graves of Wild Bill and Calamity, Seth Bullock, and Preacher Smith. What really grabbed her attention, though, was the mass grave site of those individuals who perished in that boarding house fire so many years ago. She found herself drawn to the resting place of those unfortunate sawmill workers as if something intangible and unspoken had intervened. She stared spellbound at the grave, feeling an odd connection to something, but what? The warm spring breeze had suddenly turned chilly, and Jan felt the peculiar sensation that she was not alone. Glancing around, she saw no one, and yet she had the definite feeling that someone else was there, right beside her. And then came the noises. They were muffled at first, barely audible, but they soon got louder. Cries, shouts, screams, a riot of discordant sounds, but coming from where? The noises abruptly stopped, and all was quiet again, except for the gentle rustling of the leaves in the treetops above. At that point, a strange sort of suffocating feeling rushed over Jan, although the unmistakable smell of smoke and burning wood, She knew she had to get out of there right away. She sat in her car several minutes, trying to figure out just what the heck had happened up there, and whether she was losing her mind or not. She couldn't come up with any answers to either question, so soon Jan was back on the road and headed for Denver. Once she was back home, Jan got involved with other things and started to forget about the incident at Deadwood. She didn't tell her folks about it, because she was just too downright confused about it herself. As far as she was concerned, it was over and done with. But if Jan thought the eerie occurrences at Mount Moriah were behind her, she was in for a big surprise. Not only would she not forget them, but whoever or whatever was behind them seemed to have followed her to Colorado. About a week after her arrival at her parents' home in Denver, the family was awakened one night about midnight by the sounds of footsteps running and shuffling in the upstairs hallway. When Jan and her parents emerged from their bedrooms to investigate, the sounds suddenly stopped. It happened 2 nights in a row. The second night, footsteps could be heard on the stairs leading up to the second floor, too. That's when Jan decided to tell her parents about the eerie events in Deadwood. Far from doubting her, both her mother and father were very supportive and understanding. In fact, it was Jan's mother who matter-of-factly told her daughter that they were probably dealing with a ghost, maybe more than one, and they would just have to wait and see what happened. These things were very unpredictable. Sometimes they ended as abruptly as they began. Far from ending, however, the ghostly manifestations picked up in intensity. One evening, when her parents were away, Jan was writing some letters in her room. Suddenly, a vague uneasiness, just like the feeling she had had at the cemetery, came over her. Without even turning from her desk, Jan instinctively knew that she was not alone. This was confirmed when she looked over her shoulder and saw the figure of a man standing against the far wall. He moved toward her a few feet, not so much walking, but as if he was floating. The ghost appeared to be sort of inner light. The ghost appeared to be wearing ragged clothes and seemed to be visible by some sort of inner light that illuminated not only him, but the immediate space around him. Jan and her visitor stared at each other for a moment or two, and then he distinctively said, "Get out." She heard it plain as day. He passed right through the closed door and was gone. Coupled with Jan's fear was a fair amount of indignation. How dare anyone, even a ghost, try to drive her away? And what business did he have following her from South Dakota anyway? She didn't know it then, but later that night the answers to these questions would become abundantly clear. It was a little after 2 o'clock in the morning, and Jan was awakened from a sound sleep by the same apparition she had encountered earlier. He stood over her bed, and though the room was dark, his form was plainly visible. Again he admonished her to get out, and this time the message seemed much more urgent. So urgent that Jan was immediately out of bed and running down the hall without knowing exactly why or where she was running to. About that time she smelled the smoke, and a few minutes later she had roused her parents and was calling for the fire department. The fire had started in the den and was contained there by rapid response of the firemen. Upon her parents' return earlier in the evening, Jan's dad had stoked up the fireplace to take the chill off an unusually cool spring night. He thought the fire had been extinguished before he went to bed, but an ember had reignited a chunk of log, and the smoldering wood had fallen out of the hearth and onto the carpet. Indeed, it could have been much worse, and would have been, if Jan hadn't awakened when she did. At last she knew what the ghost had been trying to tell her all along. Could he have followed her all the way to Denver to warn her of impending disaster? That would have made his warning to get out a concerned effort to help rather than the irascible urgings of a cantankerous spirit. It's impossible to say, but one thing's for sure. This guardian ghost did save the Castilia family from a fate that he would have known about all too well. That's the end of that one. Okay, I have an idea to draw possibly 2 separate images for this because he was seen 2 separate times, or well, wasn't seen too well. How can I put this? He made his presence known more than once, in more than one way. So, I'm going to try something a little different today. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to try it. I haven't practiced it, so I'm not sure if it's going to work. But since it said that there was a light illuminating around him, I'm going to try to make that light happen the best that I can. So I'm going to try to draw him on the black paper and see what happens with my white pencil. Okay, I'm going to do the first time he was made himself kind of known was when they heard footsteps down the hall. So I'm going to work on that part first. Get you down in there a little bit. I just used this new sharpener. Look at that freaking point on that sucker. That could really hurt somebody. Squirrel, right? Okay, so we're going to have, they heard footsteps down the hall, right? So I'm going to just try to make a weird, this may be a weird picture, but I just wanted to do it. I saw a example of it, and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to try to do that. I've not practiced this, so if it looks kind of funny, I apologize. Those are shoes, in case they don't they don't look look like shoes. But they heard footsteps, so I thought this was a cool picture. So I'm going to try to redo this picture. Now, it might not look right now, but you'll kind of get the gist of it once I get going here a little bit. Then we're going to use our nifty little blender to blend all this in. When I heard that, when I was reading that, I was thinking, man, that ghost reminds me of the ghost from the Amityville Horror. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or if you've seen that show when it was on TV and everything, and because that was supposedly a real event. And I remember the ghost telling him to get out. And get out. Yeah, that's so famous for that. Okay, so what we have is a like almost mirror image, but not, of the ghost actually coming out from under his feet. So you could see that it's kind of like a ghostly footsteps type of thing. So like if the person was standing right here, this is the guy standing, and that's his shadow reflecting onto the floor. So that's his footsteps down the hall type of thing that they've seen. That I thought was a cool. Now we're going to try the impossible, which I think maybe I might end up doing something just on a plain piece of paper, or just go with what I already did. So we're going to try to emulate this guy here. And I'm not going to draw faces or anything, but I'm going to just try to see if I'm in. Yep. Try to just draw an outline and then go from there of a man. Uh-oh. My tip is moving on this pencil. And see what I can come up with when I try to like blend it, because I've never did this on black. Oh, there it went. Let me see if I can get it to come back. Sorry about that. This always happens, you know. Unexpected things always happen. Now this is a little better. Okay. That didn't take long. That's a good pencil sharpener. I've got like 50 million of them. I was cleaning out my craft room the other day, and man, holy, I had so much stuff in there that I was not using anymore. And we do auction time. We do an auction time thing once a month where we take stuff to an auction and then it gets auctioned off, and then we get it checked, you know, after they take their commission out, which is ridiculous. But we don't get a lot of money, but it's better than just throwing it out. And I donate it, but man, there's just I I do donate to a church. It's called the Free Church. I might have mentioned before, but Yeah, it's a free church, and you can get clothing there and everything. I had to recently because of losing 50 pounds. So yeah, so I had to go get a new kind of wardrobe, and it was made more sense getting it there than getting it, buying it and then losing more weight. Now I'm kind of at a standstill, so we'll see what happens. I mean, I've gotten to my goal weight, but we'll see what happens. See if I lose any more. Because, like, my mindset isn't that I've lost. My mindset is that I'm still kind of, oh yeah, it works. Now, she said there was a light around him and a light that kind of looked like it was through him, so I'm going to try to do the other part. I even forgot what I was just saying, but that's okay. So we'll just do a quick shading in here. I always like these kind of stories only because they're helpful. The ghosts are helpful rather than harmful. But in the beginning, he didn't sound like he was too friendly. Like get out of a house you've just lived in that I've never been in before, right? That's weird that it actually followed, but if it knew that this was going to happen, being as that's what it perished from, it makes sense. Okay, that's as good as it's going to get. But that's my illuminated ghost on black, and then my shadow image. Move you out a little bit. Shadow image of as if he was standing here, and you would see his shadow, and he was standing in those shoes. And then the illuminated get out man. Oh, I don't remember hearing about that. I mean, we get into some of the Western stuff, and I think I'd like to go there and visit those graves. It'd be awesome to see where all those famous Western icons are. So, well, I don't know how many more stories I have left in here. Oh my gosh, there goes my voice. But I will look through it and tag some more if we have some more in here. If not, I think I'm going to try to do the Ghosts of Gettysburg next. I believe I have that big booklet next to go through. And so I shall do that. And I was thinking that maybe this year, at the end of the year, all the books that I have gone through and read stories from, I will gather them up at the end of the year, like just before Christmas, maybe in beginning of December or the end of November. And all those books I would like to give away. I mean, I've already read them. Now, the best part about that is, in those books, I haven't read every single story. So there are stories in there that haven't been read that you could still enjoy. But I'm just thinking of doing some kind of giveaway. Whether it's like you have to say something in the comments or comment something to me, and then we'll go from there. Either you'll comment the book you're interested in, and I'll do a wheel spin of the people on that book, or some other way of doing it. It'll just be a random, you get whatever book you get. So I'll figure that out toward the end of the year, and maybe I'll go through that and see how many books that we can go through. I believe we've gone through at least 4 or 5 right now. So I'm thinking of doing that kind of thing, just to give back, because I've already used them for my purposes, and that way other people can enjoy the rest of the stories or whatever, and makes room for more, right? Alrighty. And also, if you have a book that you would like to donate to the channel for me to read and do the sketches for ghost stories, I always have my Happy Mail address in the description of my videos. So if you would like to donate any kind of ghost story books, I'd be more than happy to do some readings and some sketches in them. Okay, now thank you for stopping by, and thank you for being around. And we're gonna got a whole new year ahead of us. Lots of stories, lots of sketches, lots of fun. And I shall see you guys in the next video. But first, like if you liked my video, subscribe if you haven't, comment if you'd like to, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay warm, stay healthy, stay happy, and stay with our channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.